And over now to Jeffrey Epstein. He remains in jail today, charged with running a sex trafficking ring of underage girls. He's facing the rest of his life in prison if convicted. This as the calls are growing louder for Labor Secretary Acosta to resign and former President Bill Clinton making a public statement. RT's John Huddy is joining us live with more on this bombshell story. John?
Well, Manila, speaking of Secretary Acosta, he is now speaking out publicly about the latest charges against Jeffrey Epstein and the 14-page indictment, saying he posted a series of tweets just about 15 minutes ago, in one saying the crimes committed by Epstein are horrific, and I am pleased that New York prosecutors are moving forward with a case based on new evidence. This is likely to generate a lot of contention and a lot of controversy. I'll explain momentarily, but first, it's unlikely that Jeffrey Epstein is going to get out of jail anytime soon. Prosecutors are recommending he remains behind bars, posing a significant flight risk. This as the fallout in the case very much continues today. Epstein's story also involves other high-profile people and names of whom he was friends with and or associated with. Among them, former President Bill Clinton, both a friend of Epstein and Epstein's former partner, Ghislaine Maxwell. We've heard her name a lot, the British socialite accused of essentially working as Epstein's madam in recruiting his young victims. Now, a statement released by former President Clinton's office reads in part that, quote, President Clinton knows nothing about the terrible crimes Jeffrey Epstein pleaded guilty to in Florida some years ago, or those with which he has been recently charged in New York, and continues saying, quote, in 2002 and 2003, President Clinton took a total of 4 trips on Jeffrey Epstein's airplane, 1 to Europe, 1 to Asia, and 2 to Africa, which included stops in connection with the work of the Clinton Foundation. Now, there have been other reports that perhaps Clinton may have taken more trips than that with Epstein. That remains unclear. What is clear is that the fallout from Epstein's arrest and indictment has really only just begun. Today, there are renewed calls, as you mentioned, Manila, for the resignation of U.S. Labor Secretary Alex Acosta. Acosta is the former U.S. attorney in Florida who helped engineer the so-called sweetheart plea deal that allowed Epstein to avoid federal prosecution and instead serve time in Palm Beach County Jail on lesser state solicitation of prostitution charges back in 2008, a plea deal that not even Epstein's accusers were aware of. Well, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi tweeted this: at Secretary Acosta must step down. As U.S. attorney, he engaged in unconscionable agreement with Jeffrey Epstein, kept secrets from courageous young victims, preventing them from seeking justice. This was known by POTUS when he appointed him to cabinet, hashtag Acosta resign. Also today, Democratic Senator from New York, Chuck Schumer, has also called for Acosta's resignation. Speaking of which, as I mentioned at the top, Secretary Acosta is now responding to the latest indictment and charges. I mentioned the one tweet. He also went on to say, with the evidence available more than a decade ago, and forgive me, I'm reading from my phone here in the tweets, but with the evidence available for more than a decade ago, federal prosecutors insisted that Epstein go to jail, register as a sex offender, and put the world on notice that he was a sexual predator. He goes on to write, now that new evidence and additional testimony is available, the New York prosecution offers an important opportunity to more fully bring him to justice. Again, the fact that he engineered this deal back in 2008, there's a lot of questions about that, Manila. There's a lot of controversy regarding that and the ongoing calls for him to step down. On another note, Attorney General William Barr has recused himself from the Epstein case because one of the law firms A.G. Barr worked for at one time represented Jeffrey Epstein. Further, Epstein apparently also worked for Barr's father, the headmaster at the Dalton School in New York City when Epstein was a math teacher there. So it's another example of Epstein's ties stretching far and wide. But now the billionaire jet setter remains locked in a jail cell at the Manhattan Correctional Facility, just a couple miles from his multi-million-dollar Upper East Side townhouse, and that is unlikely to change. As I mentioned, the fallout, the controversy, the contention continues. Manila, back to you.
All just beginning. John Huddy, thank you. And for more on this unfolding drama, let's turn now to Farron Cousins. He's the editor of Trial Lawyer magazine and host of Ring of Fire Radio. Farron, good to see you. First, can you break down some of these major charges Epstein is facing and what sort of time these come with?
Well, right now, when you put all the charges together, he's looking at, I think, a maximum about 45 years in prison, given the fact he's in his late 60s. That is essentially a life sentence. But the other thing, the two big charges, really, obviously, the trafficking of minors for the purpose of sex, as well as the conspiracy to traffic minors here into the United States. And to be honest, it's the conspiracy part that is probably going to end up playing out on the much larger scale here, because a conspiracy cannot just be one person. Epstein did not act alone here. We've heard the stories about Ghislaine possibly acting as his madam, helping to recruit these women. But there's lots of money involved in this. There's lots of, intricate pieces. And those are the pieces that hopefully we're going to start learning about in the coming weeks and months. Who else was involved in this, just from the conspiracy standpoint, not even to mention all of the major powerful players who may have been using Epstein's services for some of these women. So it's going to be incredibly remarkable as these events continue to unfold.
Absolutely. He has got a laundry list of high-profile friends, namely Bill Clinton, even sitting President Trump. Do you foresee Epstein rolling on some of his high-profile buddies in a trade for maybe another sweetheart plea?
I think it's very likely that something like this would happen. Epstein understands that, first of all, everybody now already knows about the original sweetheart deal, the original charges, all of that. That is no longer a secret. So he knows he's working against his own past. So if he wants to avoid spending his last years on this planet in prison, he's going to have to give up some kind of information that prosecutors, need or want. And it can't just be, oh, well, let me embarrass this politician, let me embarrass this one. No, it's got to be hard evidence of other people involved in criminal activity. Again, just saying, oh, yeah, Clinton or Trump, they came and all the time. That doesn't work. It has to be, I have evidence of other criminal behavior. I can roll on these people. This is valuable to you. I know other sex traffickers that I can turn in and shut down a whole ring. Short of that, I don't know that any kind of plea deal would be in the works. But given the intricacies of this, the complexity of it, Epstein knows people, and he certainly can roll on certain individuals, probably individuals we don't even know about yet.
Now, on a even more serious note here, the bigger picture, sex trafficking is a growing problem in the U.S., not only facing folks like rich guys like Epstein, but as an industry as a whole. Shouldn't this high-profile case also be used to highlight this problem in the U.S.?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Sex trafficking is something people hear about. We see it in movies, but we don't understand the fact that this is a massive multi-billion-dollar industry here in the United States today. There's actually a lot of investigations and lawsuits happening right now involving, motel chains that are, implicated in some of these human trafficking. Truck stops all over the country have become a hotbed for human trafficking and putting, forcing women to work as sex workers all over this country. This is a business that is happening right under our noses, and a lot of people still think it really only exists in Hollywood blockbusters. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is happening all around us in the United States today.
Yeah, I'll add a personal note to this. I mean, just traveling up I-95, going southbound, if you stop at any of these rest stops to use the bathroom, there are actual signs posted that warn you to look for women or children who look like they're in distress, because they are likely to be trafficked, and there's phone numbers that you can call to report this. So, I mean, this is a very serious problem that's growing, something that I think, no one's really seriously talking about.
Absolutely. That's something we have discussed plenty of times on America's Lawyer. We talk about it on Ring of Fire. Mike Papantonio has done plenty, He's given speeches and conferences on this because this is something that people have to understand. People have to know the signs. People have to be able to recognize it because this isn't necessarily an industry that's going to be taken down by just a few, tough cops. Yeah. This has to be everyone working together to shut this down.
Yeah, looking forward to see what you guys talk about on Ring of Fire Radio and of course, on America's Lawyer as this case unfolds. Farron Cousins, thank you so much for your time today.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.